James was walking home from school when he heard something sloshing around in the water. He slowly walked over to check and saw a dog paddling for dear life, struggling to stay afloat. He looked teary and looked at James, tugging at his heart. James hastens his pace and runs towards the dog and pulls him out of the river. When James puts the dog back on the ground, the dog refuses to move anywhere. James, his heart filled with compassion, knelt beside the exhausted dog. Its wet fur clung to its shivering body as it looked up at him with pleading eyes. James gently patted the dog's head and realized it must have been in the water for quite some time. He knew he couldn't leave the dog alone like this. James looked around, searching for any clues about the dog's owner, but there was nothing in sight. Without a second thought, he decided to take the dog home with him. Carefully, James picked up the dog, cradling it in his arms, and started walking towards his house. The dog seemed to trust him completely, leaning into his warmth and protection. It was a bond formed in a moment of need and rescue. He looked at the dog and noticed the animal had strange stains around its belly. He wanted to check it up close, but was a little apprehensive to creep closer to the dog. Instead, James decides to take the dog home and clean the dog to remove the stains. When his parents see the dog, they decided to bring him to the vet instead. James couldn't shake off his concern about the strange stains on the dog's belly. As he carried Lucky home, he couldn't help but steal glances at the discolored patches. He wondered what could have caused them and if the dog was in pain. Upon arriving home, James quickly set up a comfortable spot for Lucky with a clean blanket and fresh water. His parents, seeing the worried look on James's face, approached him to inquire about the dog. James explained the situation, mentioning the stains on Lucky's belly. His parents exchanged concerned glances and agreed that it would be best to have a veterinarian examine Lucky. They knew it was essential to ensure the dog's well-being and address any health issues. The vet immediately sees that this dog isn't like any others. Something is terribly wrong with this dog, and the vet couldn't figure out what. He has never seen anything like this before. He decides to do some examinations on the dog. What could it possibly be? As he carefully examines the dog, he notices unusual symptoms: high fever, erratic behavior, and unexplained lesions on its skin. The vet's curiosity deepens as he reviews the dog's medical history. Could it be a rare disease? The puzzle consumes his thoughts as he runs various tests, consults with colleagues, and scours medical literature for answers. Days turn into weeks, and the dog's condition worsens. The vet's determination to solve the mystery grows stronger. He becomes obsessed with finding a cure and helping the suffering animal. Sleepless nights and relentless research lead him closer to a breakthrough. Finally, after months of tireless effort, he identifies a previously undiscovered illness. The vet develops a treatment plan and administers it to the dog. After long examinations, the results finally came back. The vet already knew it wouldn't be good, given how the dog looked. He logs into the computer, looks at the results, and turns pale. It was something he had never seen before, and he immediately called the police. James was so confused. Why did the vet call the police? Could something happen to him? So many questions went through James's head. He had no idea that the dog he had found abandoned on the street was at the center of a criminal investigation. As the authorities arrived, the vet explained the situation, and they began the process of tracking down those responsible for the dog's suffering. James, relieved that he had done the right thing by bringing the dog to the vet, cooperated with the police to help them find any leads that could lead to justice for the innocent animal. While the police were on their way, the vet asked James how he found the dog. James said that he was walking home from school when he heard some strange sounds. The sounds came from this river nearby, he knew. It sounded like someone needed help. Curious and concerned, James followed the sound to the riverbank, where he discovered the poor dog lying in distress. The dog's condition was so alarming that James immediately decided to rush it to the nearest veterinary clinic, which happened to be the one where the vet worked. The vet commended James for his quick thinking and compassion, as his timely intervention likely saved the dog's life and helped expose the illegal activities surrounding its suffering. Together, they anxiously awaited the arrival of the police, hoping that justice would soon be served for the innocent canine victim. Little did he know that his act of kindness would set off a chain of events. When James first heard the sound, he decided to take a closer look at where he heard it was coming from. When he closed up on the river, he saw a dog trapped in the branches of the river. The poor dog could not get out of it. James did not hesitate and decided to take action. Carefully, James made his way down to the riverbank, trying to figure out how to rescue the trapped dog without putting himself in danger. James found a long branch nearby and extended it toward the stranded canine, attempting to create a makeshift bridge for the dog to crawl onto. After a few tense moments, the dog cautiously made its way to safety, using James's improvised bridge. Relieved and grateful, the dog wagged its tail and gave James a thankful look. James couldn't leave the dog alone in such a vulnerable state, so he decided to take it home and make sure it was safe. James did not have to think twice. While he was in the river, he noticed that it would not be easy to free the dog. The branches and debris had created a tangled mess, making it difficult for both the dog and James to navigate. With unwavering resolve, James carefully worked his way through the tangled branches, all the while trying to soothe the frightened dog. It was a challenging and nerve-wracking task, but James remained persistent. After what felt like an eternity, James finally managed to free the dog from the entanglement and have the dog cross the makeshift bridge he provided. Both of them were wet, cold, and exhausted, but they were safe. James gently cradled the shivering dog in his arms. It was a heroic act of kindness, and the bond between James and the rescued dog grew stronger with each passing moment. When James and the dog were out of the water, James immediately noticed some weird stains on the dog's belly. He had never seen a dog with these strange stains before. He was unsure about what it was, but didn't have time to think about it then and there. He planned to call the vet as soon as possible, too. But first, James took the dog with him to his home. He wrapped the dog around him to provide comfort and protect it from the cold, and then they embarked on the journey to James's house. While walking home, James couldn't stop thinking about the mysterious stains and what they might signify. Upon reaching his home, James made a comfortable spot for the dog and provided it with food and water. He knew that the dog needed professional medical attention, so he planned to take it to the vet the next day to address both the strange stains and its overall condition. Little did James know that this decision would set in motion a series of events that would not only change his life, but also uncover a remarkable and unexpected story behind the dog's unusual circumstances. Once James arrived home, he thought he might get the stains off by cleaning him. But after cleaning the dog, the stains would not come off no matter how hard he scrubbed and cleaned it. James did not know what could possibly be happening, so he decided to search for answers on the internet. He carefully typed in keywords related to strange stains on a dog's belly, hoping to find some guidance or information that could shed light on the situation. As he delved into online forums and articles, he came across various possibilities, from allergies to unusual medical conditions. Realizing that the internet might provide some initial insights but couldn't replace a professional veterinarian's expertise, James resolved to take the dog to the vet the very next morning. He knew that the dog deserved proper medical care, and he was determined to get to the bottom of the mystery and ensure the dog's well-being. Little did he know that this journey would lead to unexpected revelations and a deep bond between him and the enigmatic dog. James was suddenly disturbed when his parents came home. They saw the dog lying in his bed, and it did not look good at all. They were angry with James for bringing a dog in that condition into their house. The dog was not welcome in their parents' house. James tried to explain that he had found the dog in distress and wanted to help it, but his parents were worried about the dog's health and potential risks it might pose to their family and their own pets, if any. Tensions escalated as James and his parents debated the dog's presence in the house. They were worried about the dog's unknown history and whether it might have any contagious illnesses. It was a difficult situation, as James wanted to do what he felt was right for the dog, but he also had to respect his parents' concerns and rules within their home. This unexpected turn of events added another layer of complexity to the mystery surrounding the dog's origins and condition. James's parents were not happy with this situation in their home. They didn't want a filthy dog that was probably sick. They just didn't want him in the house. James felt helpless because he couldn't just put the dog back on the street in this state. It was too fragile. He knew that the dog needed help and couldn't simply be abandoned again. The tension in the house continued to mount as James and his parents argued about the dog's fate. James was torn between his sense of responsibility and compassion for the dog and his respect for his parents' wishes. It was a challenging situation with no easy solution in sight. In the midst of this turmoil, James decided to reach out to local animal shelters and rescue organizations to see if they could provide assistance or temporary shelter for the dog. He hoped to find a solution that would satisfy his parents' concerns while ensuring the dog received the care it needed. Little did James know that his actions would lead to unexpected twists in the story. James started to beg his parents to help the poor dog. He explained that he found the dog all stuck in the branches of the river and nobody was helping him. The parents saw how much James cared about the dog and finally gave in and decided to help James. They realized that their son's compassion and determination to help this innocent animal were admirable qualities. After a heartfelt family discussion, they agreed to support James in his efforts to provide care for the dog. With their collective decision made, James and his parents began working together to ensure the dog received the necessary medical attention, proper grooming, and a safe, comfortable place to stay in their home. This act of kindness and understanding strengthened the bond within the family and set in motion a journey filled with both challenges and heartwarming moments as they unraveled the mysteries surrounding the dog's past and health. James and his parents both went searching on the internet but couldn't find anything on the internet similar to what the dog had. James kept insisting on helping the dog. James's father, Rick, therefore, decided to take him to the vet so he could take a look. Recognizing James's strong determination to help the dog, his father, Rick, decided to take him to the vet. They hoped that the vet's professional expertise would shed some light on the situation and provide the dog with the necessary care it needed. The dog's health and well-being were now a top priority for the family, and they were eager to get to the bottom of the mystery and ensure the dog's recovery. The visit to the vet marked a crucial turning point in their journey as they sought answers about the dog's condition and began uncovering the unique story behind this enigmatic canine. Little did they know that this trip to the vet would bring them closer to solving the mystery and forging an even deeper connection with the dog. They went to the vet at high speed, as the dog's condition worsened during the drive. They had to get there quickly, because this dog needed to get help as soon as possible. It was clear to James and his parents that if they didn't get there soon, the dog might not survive at all. Rick drove as fast as he could, ignoring possible fining tickets. The urgency of the situation pushed them to their limits. They prayed that they would reach the vet in time to provide the dog with the necessary medical attention. As they finally arrived at the vet's office, they were met with a sense of relief, but also deep concern for the dog's well-being. The next steps at the vet's office would be critical in determining the cause of the dog's condition and providing the appropriate treatment to alleviate its pain and discomfort. They rushed to the vet. Once they arrived, The vet assistant told them that they had to make an appointment before they could be entertained. Rick explained that the dog was in terrible condition and it needed help right away. When the vet assistant saw the unexplained stains on the dog, she understood the urgency and called the vet. The vet, upon hearing the details from the assistant, understood the severity of the case and agreed to see the dog right away. Their persistence and determination had paid off, and the dog was soon in the hands of the vet, who would begin the process of diagnosing and treating the mysterious condition that had brought the dog into the brink of suffering. The journey to uncover the truth behind the dog's illness had taken another significant step, and they were one step closer to providing the dog with the help it so desperately needed. The vet came to pick up the dog and already saw that this dog needed immediate help. He asked James where this dog came from, and James explained where he found it. The vet didn't hesitate and grabbed his gear and began his tests on the dog. The urgency of the situation was evident, and every second counted as they worked to identify the cause of the dog's suffering and provide the necessary treatment to alleviate its pain and discomfort. As the vet meticulously examined the dog and conducted various tests, James and his family anxiously waited for answers nervously. They were hoping that they would soon have a clearer understanding of what had happened to the dog and how to help it recover. The journey to unravel the mystery continued, with the vet's expertise playing a crucial role in their quest for answers and the dog's well-being. The vet has had a lot of experience after years of helping dogs, but he was shocked when he saw the strange stains on the dog's belly. In all these years, he had never seen something like this before. He told Rick that this could be something very bad. The mysterious stains were just the beginning of a complex medical puzzle that they would need to unravel to ensure the dog's recovery and well-being. As the vet contemplated the gravity of the situation, he couldn't help but wonder what could have caused such peculiar stains on the dog's belly. His years of experience had taught him to approach each case with caution and thoroughness. Rick, who had brought the dog in, was anxiously awaiting answers, hoping that this medical puzzle could be solved for the sake of the dog's well-being. After doing several tests on the dog, he could not get any solid results about what could be wrong with him. The vet tells James and his parents that he has to do some special examinations on the dog to find out what this dog is suffering from. The vet's commitment to solving the mystery grew stronger, and he assured James and his family that they would do everything in their power to determine what was afflicting the dog. He outlined the plan for these specialized examinations, which might include blood work, imaging scans, and consultations with other veterinary specialists if necessary. It was a challenging and uncertain path, but they were determined to get to the bottom of the dog's condition and provide it with the best possible care. As they embarked on this journey of discovery, the vet, James, and his family were united in their dedication to helping the dog and unraveling the enigma that had brought them together. The vet took the dog to the lab to do some special examinations. After a while, the vet returned to James and his parents and told them the results should take a few days to return. When James wanted to pick up the dog, the vet told him the dog was not allowed to leave the lab. The vet's stern tone and refusal left James and his family puzzled and worried. They couldn't understand why the dog needed to remain at the lab and why they couldn't have it back with them. The vet likely had a valid reason for this decision, but the uncertainty surrounding the dog's situation deepened as they wondered about the nature of the examinations and the potential severity of the dog's condition. This unexpected development added a new layer of complexity to their already challenging journey to help the enigmatic canine. James and his parents were confused about why the dog was not allowed to come home, but accepted the vet's request. A few days later, Rick received a call from the vet. "You need to come down immediately. The results are back." Rick calls his wife Emma and tells her to pick up James from school. They had to go to the vet immediately. Emma became a little bit scared about why they all had to come down to the vet. When they arrived, they were told there was a serious problem. Rick, in turn, called his wife Emma and instructed her to pick up James from school, explaining that they had to go to the vet immediately. Emma felt a sense of unease and worry about why they all needed to be present at the vet's office. When they arrived at the vet's office, they were met with grave news. The vet explained that the results of the special examinations had revealed a serious problem with the dog's health. The situation was far more critical than they had anticipated, and it left them all deeply concerned about what lay ahead for the enigmatic canine and the challenging decisions they would need to make to ensure its well-being. The vet asked several questions to James and his parents. The questions were quite weird. It was more about where he found the dog rather than the results of the test. The vet ended the questioning by saying that he needed to call the police if James didn't cooperate. As the vet continued to press for information about the circumstances of finding the dog, he finally issued a startling ultimatum. He informed them that he needed full cooperation, and if James didn't comply with his requests, he would have no choice but to involve the police. The threat of police involvement left James and his family in a state of shock and confusion. They couldn't understand why the vet was taking such a drastic stance, and they were left with no option but to cooperate further, despite their growing unease about the situation and the mysterious turn of events. James is telling the truth, however. The vet called the police, and once the police arrived, James needed to come to the police station for further questioning. James got terrified by the idea of being arrested. He did not understand what was happening to him. The police requested that James accompany them to the police station for further questioning. Fear and confusion gripped him as he contemplated the possibility of being arrested. He couldn't comprehend why he was being subjected to this ordeal, when all he had wanted was to help the dog he had found in distress. As he reluctantly followed the police to the station, James's mind raced with questions and uncertainty about what was happening and what the consequences might be. The mystery surrounding the dog's condition had taken a perplexing and alarming turn, leaving James in a state of anxiety and trepidation. James' parents are crying and begging the police officers to not take him to the police station. What did he do wrong here? He is just a 10-year-old boy who found a dog and tried to help him. He shouldn't be arrested for doing a kind favor to the dog. They emphasized that James was just a 10-year-old boy who had found a dog in distress and had tried to do a kind and compassionate thing by bringing it to the vet for help. They couldn't understand why he was facing the threat of arrest when his actions had been driven by empathy and a desire to assist the suffering animal. The situation was heartbreaking for James's parents as they grappled with the fear and uncertainty surrounding their son's involvement with the police. Their emotional pleas and confusion mirrored the family's deep sense of injustice and the bewildering turn of events in their efforts to help the enigmatic dog. Unfortunately, the begging and crying of James's parents didn't help, and James got arrested and was put in the police car. He looked his parents scared in the eyes when they were driving off. James's parents stood there helpless, watching their son being arrested by the police for actually helping a dog, when they should be arresting the evil people who did this to the poor animal instead. The situation was heart-wrenching and deeply distressing for James's family, who could do nothing but hope for a swift resolution to this bewildering and unjust turn of events. The mystery surrounding the dog's condition had now extended to envelop their own lives, leaving them grappling with a sense of injustice and uncertainty about what lay ahead for James and the dog he had tried to help. James had never been in a police car and was impressed by what it looked like, but he was especially scared of the feeling of being arrested. He started to ask all sorts of questions to the police officers about why he was being arrested, but he did not get any answers. He sought explanations and clarity, hoping to understand why he was in this situation. However, the officers remained silent, providing no answers or reassurance. The lack of response only added to James's anxiety, leaving him feeling even more uncertain and scared about what was happening to him. As the police car continued to drive, James's mind raced with thoughts of his parents and the dog he had tried to help, wondering how he had ended up in such a bewildering and frightening predicament. Once at the police station, they treated James like a criminal. They were rude and pushed him into the interrogation room. No questions were asked, and people were angry looking at James. He then was sitting alone in a dark, creepy room. As he entered the room, he could feel the angry stares of people around him, their judgmental looks adding to his sense of isolation and fear. Once inside the dark and eerie room, James sat alone, surrounded by an oppressive silence broken only by his own anxious thoughts. The situation was surreal and terrifying for a 10-year-old boy who had only wanted to help a suffering dog. He couldn't understand why he was being treated this way and what had led to his arrest. As James waited in that unsettling room, he clung to the hope that someone would soon come to provide answers and help him make sense of this nightmarish ordeal. The mystery surrounding his arrest deepened, leaving him in a state of profound confusion and distress. Then, an officer came into the interrogation room and started asking James questions. He was mostly asking where he found the dog and what his connection was with it. James explained that he found him on the way back home from school and never saw the dog before. He has said this over 100 times now. However, the relentless questioning and the repetitive nature of the interrogation took a toll on James. He was forced to repeat his story over and over, even though it remained consistent each time. The experience was overwhelming and exhausting for a 10-year-old boy who had never imagined finding himself in such a distressing situation. As the questioning continued, James's hope for a swift resolution and an end to his ordeal dwindled, and he became increasingly desperate for someone to understand his innocence and the true intentions behind his actions. The police were very aggressive in questioning. Then one of the officers noticed that James was very scared. The police decided to be open about the situation towards James because they no longer saw him as a suspect. When James heard the reason why the dog was in this critical state, he was shocked. The revelation must have been so unexpected and profound that it left him speechless and struggling to process the information. The unfolding of this unexpected revelation marked a crucial and pivotal moment in James's ordeal, as he grappled with newfound knowledge that would not only shed light on the dog's mysterious condition that it was suffering from, but also open up a new chapter in their journey to uncover the truth and seek justice for the innocent canine victim. Last few months, the police found a lot of dogs in the same condition as James's dog. These dogs seem to have been fed certain substances that should make them better fighting dogs. However, these substances make the dogs sick, and most of the time, they end up dead. However, instead of making them better fighters, these substances had made the dogs sick, and in most cases, they had tragically succumbed to their injuries or the effects of the toxic substances. James was left with a heavy heart as he grasped the cruelty and injustice that these innocent animals had endured. The revelation also underscored the seriousness of the situation and the urgent need to bring those responsible for these heinous acts to justice. James's involvement had unwittingly placed him at the center of a criminal investigation, and the quest for justice would continue as they sought to uncover the truth and put an end to the suffering of these vulnerable animals. To find out who was drugging these dogs, the police opened a case knowing that somewhere out there, someone was deliberately doing harm to these animals. This serious crime needed to be solved, but it turned out to be very challenging. After months of searching, they finally found their first clue when the vet called and informed them of the dog that James took to the clinic. The discovery of this initial lead marked a breakthrough in the case, providing a glimmer of hope that they were getting closer to unraveling the mystery behind these heinous acts of animal cruelty. Unfortunately for James, he found himself at the center of it all. The pursuit of justice would continue as they followed this new lead and worked tirelessly to identify and apprehend those responsible for the suffering of the helpless dogs. For months, the police were looking for the criminal organization that was responsible for the death and torture of these poor dogs. The police had a suspect in sight: Cray Johnson. Recent operations had led the police towards Cray Johnson, but this time they could have the evidence to help make sure this guy stays in jail. The case against Cray Johnson appeared to be building, and the police were determined to bring him and his criminal associates to justice for the horrific acts of animal cruelty they had committed. The pursuit of this investigation had been a long and challenging one, but the police were unwavering in their commitment to ending the suffering of these poor dogs and holding those responsible accountable for their actions. The leader of the criminal organization was called Cray Johnson, aka Crazy Johnson. He was a well-known figure in the underworld. He was detained several times for various felonies and was a notorious figure in the criminal world. His name is greatly feared in the streets of the city, making the police cautious as well as wary of approaching just anyone for more information about him. Despite his criminal record and the fear he inspired, the police were determined to gather enough evidence to finally bring Cray Johnson to justice for his involvement in the illegal and cruel activities related to the dogs. His apprehension would not only mark a significant victory in the fight against animal cruelty, but also serve as a powerful message that even the most notorious criminals would face the consequences of their actions. The police strongly suspect that Cray Johnson and his gang are responsible for the dead dogs. Until now, the police had no evidence to know the whereabouts of the dog fighting, and also no evidence to arrest the criminal organization of Cray Johnson. But James's dog might lead to a breakthrough, as it is the first dog that was found alive. The dog's survival was not only a testament to James's compassion and intervention, but also a potential key to finally unraveling the mystery and bringing those responsible to justice. The police understood the significance of this development and were determined to use the dog's case as a stepping stone toward exposing the underground dog fighting network and holding Cray Johnson and his gang accountable for their cruel actions. The journey to justice was far from over, but they now had a glimmer of hope and a powerful asset in their quest to dismantle the criminal organization and put an end to the suffering of these innocent animals. The extreme story of this Crazy Johnson shocked James. How could you treat these adorable dogs like this? James eventually came up with a plan, which surprised the officers because it wasn't actually that bad. They even decided to follow up on it. However, they recognized that his plan had merit and decided to give it serious consideration. James's willingness to get involved and contribute to the effort to expose the criminal organization was met with support from the police. His determination and creativity would play a role in their ongoing investigation, and they were eager to see how his plan might lead them closer to cracking the case and bringing justice to the victims of these heinous crimes. The police decided to provide the dog with a GPS tracker. The idea was to leave the dog in the hood of the criminal organization to lure out Crazy Johnson. He should take the dog back to the fight. The police would then be able to track the GPS tracker of the dog to the fighting event and catch them in the act. This strategy aimed to catch the perpetrators in the act, gather irrefutable evidence, and ultimately dismantle the entire criminal organization responsible for the suffering of these innocent dogs. The plan was risky, but held the promise of finally bringing those responsible to justice and ending the cycle of cruelty that had plagued the city for far too long. With James's bravery and the police's determination, they were ready to execute this daring operation to expose the underground world of dogfighting and ensure that no more dogs would suffer at the hands of Cray Johnson and his gang. The plan was put into action, and the dog was given a GPS tracker before being dropped off near Cray Johnson Hood, where he was active. They hoped the dog would be noticed and be taken by one of Cray's entourage. The success of the operation depended on the dog being taken by the criminals, which would trigger the GPS tracker and allow the police to track its movements in real time. It was a tense and high-stakes operation, as they waited for any sign that the dog had been discovered by Cray Johnson or one of his associates. The safety and well-being of the dog were of paramount importance, and the police were prepared to act swiftly to intervene and ensure the dog's protection as they worked to uncover the illegal dog fighting operation. The fate of the dog and the pursuit of justice hung in the balance as they waited for the plan to unfold. The police waited a few hours, but nothing happened. But then, finally, they saw Cray heading outside. Immediately, Cray spotted the dog, and you could see the confusion on his face. Cray picked up the dog and took it inside. Now it was a waiting game. Would Cray take the dog with him to the fighting event? Cray picked up the dog and took it inside. It was a pivotal moment in the operation, and now it became a waiting game. The police monitored the GPS tracker's movements, their hopes riding on the possibility that Cray would indeed take the dog with him to the dog fighting event. Tensions ran high as they awaited the next development, hoping that this daring plan would lead them closer to exposing the criminal organization and bringing Cray Johnson and his associates to justice for their heinous acts of cruelty. The fate of the dog and the success of their operation hung in the balance. It took a while before the police saw some significant movement in the GPS tracker. It went to several locations, most of which appeared familiar to the police. But one location was in the middle of nowhere, which was quite suspicious. This unexpected location raised red flags among the police, as it didn't fit the profile of where the dogfighting events typically took place. It suggested that something out of the ordinary was happening, and they couldn't ignore the possibility that this remote location might be connected to a hidden dogfighting operation that had eluded their previous investigations. With this new lead, the police were determined to get closer to the truth and unveil the secrets hidden in the middle of nowhere. It was a critical development in their efforts to expose Cray Johnson and his associates and put an end to the cruel world of dogfighting once and for all. The police thought he would move on, but the GPS signal remained at the same place. 15 minutes later, the police decided to take action, as they suggested it might actually be the fight's location. The police were shocked when they came closer to the GPS location. 15 minutes later, the police made the decision to take action, driven by the growing belief that the GPS location was, in fact, the site of the illegal dogfight. As they closed in on the coordinates, they were filled with a sense of apprehension and anticipation. However, when they arrived at the GPS location, what they encountered left them shocked and horrified. The reality of the situation was even worse than they had feared, and they were now faced with a dire and distressing scene that would have far-reaching consequences for their investigation and the pursuit of justice. The police arrived at the scene and discovered that there was no area where dogfights were taking place. However, they noticed Cray talking to someone else in a car with the dog. A deal appeared to be in progress. The police decided to take action. However, their attention was quickly drawn to a scene unfolding nearby. They observed Cray Johnson engaged in a conversation with someone else inside a car, and it became evident that a deal was in progress. The presence of the dog in the car added a significant layer of suspicion to the situation. Recognizing the potential significance as they lined up. The police had waited months for this, and everyone could not wait to handcuff these psycho criminals. The police cars are prepared and ready for the operation. Each member of the police team was ready and focused on their role in the operation. They couldn't wait to apprehend the individuals responsible for the cruelty and suffering inflicted upon the dogs. The anticipation of putting an end to the dog-fighting network and handcuffing those responsible was a driving force behind their efforts. The police cars were prepared and ready for the operation, equipped to transport suspects and secure evidence. With a sense of resolve and a collective determination, the police were about to embark on a critical mission that would bring an end to the cruel world of dogfighting in the city and ensure that justice prevailed for the victims. In the end, they drove to 5 different locations, all at once. You can imagine that this is a largely scaled operation, which involved a lot of police officers. They took down 2 criminal organizations, and 56 people were sent to jail. But what about the dogs? The rescued dogs were taken to a local animal shelter, where they received medical care, love, and attention they so desperately needed. Many of them eventually found new loving homes, while others were rehabilitated and released into safe environments. It was a bittersweet victory, knowing that these innocent animals had been saved from a life of misery and cruelty. The operation was a testament to the dedication of the police force and their unwavering commitment to justice for all, even the voiceless creatures who had suffered in silence for far too long. During the operation, the police found 120 dogs. It was a pitiful sight to know that so many animals were being abused or were about to be thrust in such a horrific situation. They all went to the vet in order to cure all of them. It would take the vet a lot of time to help all these dogs, but nevertheless, at least they were now safe. The one from James got special attention because he was so crucial in this entire police investigation. Among the rescued dogs, the one James had found received special attention. It was a symbol of the critical role this dog had played in the entire police investigation. The care and support given to this particular dog underscored the gratitude and appreciation for James's bravery and his contribution to bringing an end to the horrors of dogfighting in their city. A few days had gone by, and James had not heard anything from the police. They told his parents that it was normal procedure and that they would take it over from there. But today, the doorbell rang. James opened the door and saw the police standing there. They came bearing good news. Significant progress had been made in the case, thanks in part to the information provided by Craig Johnson. The police explained that they had arrested key members of the criminal organizations involved in dogfighting, and that the rescued dogs were receiving the care they needed. They commended James for his bravery and the role he had played in bringing this to light. They also mentioned that the rescued dog he had found was doing well and was on the path to recovery. James felt a sense of relief and accomplishment. The dog's fate and the fight against dogfighting were moving in a positive direction, and he had been a part of that change. The police's visit filled him with hope that justice would soon prevail for all the innocent dogs affected by this cruelty. The police wanted to tell James that they had caught the criminals responsible for all this, and that they had a small surprise. It was the dog James found in the river, healthy and smiling. As they spoke, they brought out the dog he had rescued from the river, and to James's delight, the dog was healthy and appeared to be smiling. It was a moment of pure joy and redemption, as the dog, once a victim of cruelty, now radiated happiness in the company of its newfound friends. James's heart swelled with happiness and relief. The dog's recovery and the criminal's capture marked a significant victory in their fight against animal cruelty. It was a moment of triumph, a testament to James's bravery and compassion, and a beautiful reunion between a young hero and the dog he had saved from the depths of despair.